All right, well, welcome back to another episode of LorcanaChats. I am Chris, aka Questing for Lore, and with me today I have another fellow content creator, somebody who's relatively new on the scene for the Lorcana side of things, Teagan. Uh, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name is Teagan. I'm from Oakland, California. Um, and yeah, I just started a YouTube channel maybe about 6 months ago and just kind of starting to get into the content creation side of things. But yeah.
Nice, nice, cool. So I'm always curious, we'll talk a little bit about the whole content creation side of things after a bit, but I always like to get everybody's kind of origin story with Lorcana, and I'm curious what kind of drew you to the game, and is it your first TCG or I wasn't 100% sure.
Lorcana is my first TCG. I would say that I played with any sort of regularity or ongoing interest. Ultimately, my wife and I are big Disney fans. We went to Disney for our honeymoon. Um, I've
Nice.
been a annual pass holder at Disneyland, and yes, I still call it annual pass holder. I don't care about the magic key, but I've been an annual pass holder at Disneyland since like 2015 or so.
Oh, okay.
Um, of course, with the pandemic, they put everything on pause, but as soon as they reactivated it, we reactivated our passes. Um, it's really been like Disney has always been something I loved. I grew up watching Disney films. My favorite, um, I don't know, stuffed animal growing up is Winnie the Pooh. I've been
Nice.
a huge fan of Winnie the Pooh for the longest time. And so when my wife and I found out about Lorcana, we found out that it was coming out. Like we had found out about it ahead of time, and um, I don't know. I kind of mentioned to her, I was like, I've never played a TCG. Like I've never even played Pokemon, and she was like, Oh, Pokemon! Like I used to play that a little bit when I was younger, and so we
Hmm.
bought some Pokemon cards and screwed around a little bit at home. But it was all in service of like getting ready for Lorcana.
All right.
Um,
All right.
and
Kind of get
we've
that
been
TCG mindset, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And we've
Yep.
been all in since day one. Like I spent way too much money, got in on chapter one pretty early. Started going out and joining leagues at the beginning of chapter two. In the first
Okay.
chapter, we were just kind of playing at home with our starter decks and our upgrades. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. I've played other games like on the computer. I played a little bit of Marvel Snap
Hmm.
before it just got really expensive. Um, and so I don't know. I love games. I've been a game player for a long time. I have Gloomhaven and other board games that I've grown up, playing and playing games with my family. Playing games on Friday night, Saturday night was always a big thing for my family. So I grew up just loving playing games and that kind of friendly competition of playing a game.
Nice. Nice. And do you have a pretty big local scene there?
Yeah, we have a huge local scene here in the Bay Area. I'm in Oakland, so the East Bay, and there's no real
Mhm.
stores in Oakland that host Lorcana, but all around us there's a ton. So I play at Games of Berkeley on Monday nights. I'm the TO for them. We often play on Thursday nights at Victory Point Cafe, which is also in Berkeley. There's Destine, which is tonight, Wednesday night, in Alameda. I play Friday nights at 88 Card House in Fremont, Newark area. Like I could play Lorcana every day of the week at a local if I wanted to, pretty much.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. I love hearing stories about people that live in areas like that, especially, if it is a large populous area and there's just so many options. It's not like, well, we've got 300,000 people in the area and there's one LGS that does it. It's like,
Yeah.
that's great, but to hear of, a place where literally, like you said, somebody can go every single night and play if they really wanted to. That's awesome, and it's such a testament to, the growth of the game and the popularity of it and everything. So,
Well, and play against good players too, right? Like
mhm.
there are very good players that attend league on a regular basis here in the area. They have their kind of private test groups too, but they're coming out and playing at leagues and various tournaments here. Um, Judy, who qualified for nationals in Toronto, goes to Games of Berkeley. you know, Ed is around the Bay Area. So the quality of competition here is really high too, which is really
Nice.
nice.
Nice. Yeah, it's great to be able to play against people of all skill ranges. I know that's one thing that's nice about the game. It's what is it? Easy to learn, hard to master.
Hmm.
There's so many people out there that, they on the whole spectrum, right? You have people that just want to come and play, puppy decks, and then you have people that are like the highly competitive, kind of thing. Do you find that most of the ones in your area are kind of more geared towards the competitive side of things, or is it kind of a balance of competitive versus casual, or?
It depends on the venue, to be honest. Like 88 Card House is on Friday night, and they play usually 4 rounds best of one. And so that
Okay.
one tends to be a bit more casual. It's pack per win, but it's a lot more casual. There definitely are some people that will bring meta decks, but there's a more wider range of skill. Um, some of the other ones I go to, Victory Point, and Games of Berkeley tend to be pretty filled with meta decks, and people that consider themselves to be pretty competitive. Uh, like after Seattle, we weren't even sure if we should have League because like almost everyone from Games of Berkeley was in Seattle, and would have been playing
Okay.
all weekend.
All right.
So it's a pretty competitive scene here at most of the locals, I would say.
Okay. All right. It's nice to have a balance, I guess, to still have a little bit of that, that casual side where, somebody wants to come in, drop in with a starter deck, they can just kind of hop in and play a couple rounds. And we had some folks at RLGS that hopped in this last week at League. And he was a Magic player. She, kind of dabbled with it, husband and wife, and he caught on pretty quickly. But then by the end of it, she was like, okay, I get this. This looks like fun, It's and she was not a TCG player from
Sure.
what I understood, but to have a game that's that approachable, and the Disney IP doesn't hurt, to be able to have
Yeah.
those familiar characters. But yeah, it's I love it, and I think it really is an important part of the future of the game, to be able to keep that kind of duality, so it's not just everybody focused on the competitive side. So,
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I also think one of the things I love about it is because the game is so simple to pick up, it is more welcoming to people to come to those more competitive spaces. I love to talk about one of the kids that plays with us on Mondays, River. Um, River came and played with us in Seattle. And he got 33 points in Seattle. He's like 8 years old.
nice.
Um, and so, even at that level, like even if you want to be competitive, it's also welcoming to new players, because you can still take games off people, right? Like anything can happen, you know, uh, with the luck of the cards, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's crazy to see, I mean, we've got, there's been some other folks that, have talked on other shows, for other content creators, but there's a lot of kids in the community out there. They're really good.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. You kind of sit across from them and you're like, oh, I'm going to play a kid, I don't know how it's going to go. And then you just get, your butt handed to you. It's like, oh my gosh.
They can
But
understand the game, right? They understand the
yeah, oh
play
yeah.
lines. They understand, what's beneficial to
Mhm.
them to do. Yeah.
Yep, yep. They're really sharp. And again, something else that really bodes well for the future of the game to have, some people at that level that are willing to, kind of keep going and really interested in the game and move up to, other competitive and stick around,
Yeah.
So, speaking of competitive, you were at the Chicago and Vegas DLC, is that right?
I've competed in 3 DLCs this
Oh,
year.
okay.
So Chicago, Las Vegas, and Seattle were the three I
Okay.
went to.
Okay, nice. So I'm curious, the DLCs have kind of evolved over time. I'm curious about your experience, kind of comparing the different ones all the way up to, obviously Seattle there at the end.
I mean, I think they've gotten better and better. Each one they've had. Obviously, like I think PPG kind of underestimated the demand for the game. Um,
Yeah,
and
just a
I think
bit.
we all kind of know that at this point. Um, but going from 500 people in Atlanta, bumping that cap up, Chicago was a 1,000 player event. It was in a hotel, in a hotel, uh, kind of big conference room, ballroom.
Hmm.
Um, and it was good. I had a good experience overall. I had a couple of things that were a little frustrating to me as a new player coming into the space and like not really understanding the way that judge calls would happen, or I don't know. I had a frustrating judge call around a Diablo trigger that my opponent was missing. Um, and I learned a lot at that experience and learned a lot about kind of how these bigger events go. I was like, that first experience, I was so nervous. Like my hands were clammy, for the
Yeah.
first like two games of the day. Like I feel like I'm sweating. Um, I was super nervous and I didn't do well in Chicago at all. I was playing RP. We did
Hmm.
not understand the Bucky plan yet. And uh, I paired against Bucky 5 times out of 9 rounds. So
Yeah,
it
that sounds
it
about
just
right.
was not my day. So um but I learned a lot and I kind of like getting reps in at that level, at that competitive level, because it's
Hmm.
one thing to even play at a store champs, but like playing at a DLC is like another higher level of formality. And I'm very like self-conscious about I forget to like untap, at the beginning of my turn before I draw or stuff like
Right.
that. And I'm still learning those mechanics and like getting those things embedded into my brain. But it was a great experience. I think, for me, Vegas was uh probably my favorite of them.
Hmm.
In general, the weather was really bad in Seattle. It was like raining and like pouring outside, and so you weren't able to kind of really do much
Sounds like
outside.
Seattle.
Yeah, you weren't really able to do much outside the actual event, but both of them were great. I really loved that they started to bring the artists to them and be able to like meet the
Yes.
artists and get stuff signed and make it into more of like a celebration of the game and not just this big, competitive tournament that if you weren't in or weren't doing well, the event didn't have as much to offer you.
Yep.
Um, so I really appreciated that in Vegas and Seattle. I also really loved that they were doing like first chapter sealed and people were opening Elsa's and like that's just
Hmm.
great. It's super exciting. There's cheers going on. Uh we were on Sunday, we were like watching the top 16 or something on the video wall in Seattle, and there was a sealed going on and there's just like shouts and you're like, oh well, somebody pulled another Elsa. um you know and that's just exciting. It creates an exciting atmosphere. I didn't get to play in any of the sealed ones, but I thought that was a really fun addition to the weekend.
Nice. Nice. So you did play some of the side events like on the second day or?
I did. I mostly did like 3 round competitive constructed, or sorry, not competitive constructed, but just 3 round constructed.
Hmm.
Because that's kind of the best bang for your buck if you're just trying to farm tickets. And it's like 3 hours. It's constructed so you don't have the deck building time that is essentially quote unquote wasted time for doing a sealed or a draft. And you get 4 tickets for participation, four for every win, and then you get the additional three if you go 3-0, I
Hmm.
think is the math. So like it's just kind of the best way to like get 19 tickets if you're a pretty good player. Um, so my wife and I did a lot of those kind of throughout as we wanted to get as many of the prizes and promos as we could. And over the course of the three, we earned a Cinderella mat, 4 Rapunzels, 4 Cinderella promo cards. So
Oh, wow.
I got the set, I got, what I came for ultimately, and we had a few extra tickets, so we helped some friends in Seattle get their final pieces that they wanted.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I went to the Atlanta DLC and the whole ticket thing was still kind of a mess at that point. So,
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that were kind of frustrated, but it's great to hear that they, got it worked out, they got it refined, and that y'all were able to help out some other folks. I know There's a lot of people that just barely got that bar. They were just happy to get the play mat or, to get the cards, the promo cards or whatever. Um, but yeah, I look forward to more of that in the future, more variety, hopefully. I mean, not that there wasn't a lot of variety, but um, it's always really cool to see what they come up with, for the next, DLC playmats, and because I'm sure they'll change them up after a while, but you know.
I am very slowly becoming a shiny goblin and like I want the shiny cards. I want the shiny deck. I want the blinged out deck. Um and I don't know, I love alternate art, like just that kind of special touch, the full art presentation. I know we're getting a full art promo of Whole New World at
Mhm.
Worlds. But like I just want a borderless like B prep, I think is kind of my
I
dream.
know. Yeah, that would be super cool. It's interesting to see, I imagine it's only a matter of time, where they take the art that they're making for these cards and they actually, make a book out of them or,
Mm,
make some kind of posters or something like that. I mean, obviously having a card with the full art is awesome for, playability, but there's just so much great art in this game. And, to have it like locked away in the cards where you can't, the 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 person that doesn't necessarily want to collect the cards and play the game,
sure.
if there's a book or something, they can enjoy it. So
Yeah,
it,
totally.
it wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
No.
I know there's stuff on the Magic side where where they have exactly the same kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm curious, as somebody who's played Lorcana a while, both competitive, casual, so if there was somebody that wants to just start out with the game, assuming maybe they haven't played TCGs before, what do you think is like something they should know before they kind of really dive in and try out the game?
Um, I mean, probably the first thing is like if your interest is really just playing, like you don't need to buy boxes and crack a bunch of packs. Like there are people in your community that are going to have a lot of bulk sitting around probably, and like
Hmm.
network and get bulk off of them. They're happy to let bulk play sets go for the most part. I know I am. I know other people in my community who are. And then buy singles, right? Like don't just go and spend a bunch of money if you don't know if you're going to like something. I think that's probably the first thing. I think the second thing is like, especially if you want to be competitive, is like really understanding some of the fundamentals of playing a card game. And I think these are some things that I've been learning over the past year, things like card advantage. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean to get card advantage? Like why is a certain card a card advantage card? And really understanding that concept. I like to kind of joke about it of like, turns out drawing cards in a card game is good, right? Like, um,
Yep.
it's important, right? And learning some of those concepts, learning concepts like board presence and like trading up and a lot of those things I think are going to make you really successful at the game in the long term if that's your goal. Um, a lot of those things can be learned from other TCGs too, but are a little bit unique in the Lorcana space. I think the hardest thing to learn, and maybe this should be something that you should start out right immediately, is inking. Like learning what to
Hmm.
ink when, I think is like one of the most important skills in the game and one of the hardest skills to master. You were kind of talking about that. Like the game is easy to pick up, but like telling somebody to pay attention to what you're inking. Don't always just ink the most expensive thing in your hand because it's a long
Yep.
ways off. Um, I think that's important for people to kind of like understand early on. Otherwise, you're just kind of setting yourself up for losing games because then you only have the cheap things in your hand and you don't have the answers that you might need or the threats that can help swing the board in your favor down the road. Um, so I think those are some of the fundamentals that I would think
Hmm.
about of like really trying to set someone up for success from a more competitive standpoint.
Okay. Nice. And you have some videos on your channel that kind of talk about some of those introductory kind of topics, right?
Some of them, I think some of the ones that some of the videos I've made were a little bit more focused on like things I wish I had known before going to a major DLC, right?
Right. Right.
And some of those are more of like the soft skills, right? Of like, don't be afraid to call a judge. Like, you're not trying to get the other person in trouble. You're asking for a clarification. And um, getting comfortable with calling a judge. They try to do it at the beginning of the DLCs and have everyone raise their hand and shout judge, but um, that might still be really hard for people. And so, like practicing those kinds of things, just being aware that, like, yeah, even though this is a Mickey Mouse card game, there are some people that are going to try to angle shoot at you, and like be aware of those things as a new player coming into this space, and don't let yourself be walked all over. Those are some of the things I've been trying to kind of focus on a little bit.
Nice. Nice. And you said, I think we mentioned this at the beginning, you've been doing it for about 6 months now. Kind
Yeah.
of curious why you started the channel, what kind of the focus of it is, if you've got any kind of themes. No?
Um, I don't know. I've had the channel for a long time actually. Like my oldest video is like a very old video.
Mhm.
Um, but I took some time off of work in like May of this year, and really trying to like think through what I wanted out of life and what I want to do. And I work a full-time 9 to 5 job, and I think everyone has the dream of not doing that and like working for yourself. And
Yep.
um, I think even though I'm young and kind of grew up with the internet, like this whole like content creation space and people getting paid to make videos and to be opinionated on the internet is such a like new and wild thing to me, and it makes me feel old. Like I'm only 35 or 36, but it makes me feel old. Like I don't understand how people do that, how people build these big followings and then are able to just like do the thing they want to do for the rest of their life. Um uh, and to be clear, like I want to be realistic. Like I don't think I have the ability to do that necessarily, or the like long-term goal of that. But I think that's enticing to a lot of people. And so I would be lying if like that's not a part of it for me. Of like, I hate my job. I hate my day job. I would love to like talk about Lorcana all day, every day.
Yeah. Yep.
uh, it obsesses my brain all day, every day anyway. And so if I could just talk about it all day, that would be great. Um, but I think the other piece of it was this piece of like, I'm coming new into the space. And I know there are a lot of people like me, and I know that like, uh, I have no problem kind of just busting down the door and like forcing my way in and like having these conversations and like sitting down with players that really know what they're doing and asking them questions and
Mhm.
taking some of those learnings. But I know that there's a lot of people that don't have that kind of wherewithal to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and they're just kind of sit there quietly and take those people angle shooting on them or whatever, right? And I hate that. Like I really hate that. I want this space, and I think part of what draws me to Lorcana is like I feel like the people that play the game are genuinely really nice, like especially a lot of the content creators, a lot of the kind of big faces, the big competitive players. They're very nice, very courteous.
Mhm.
They're totally willing to have a conversation. I feel very welcomed in the Lorcana community, as somebody who's trans, as somebody who's a woman. Um, I don't feel those kinds of barriers. And I don't know, maybe that's a part of the Disney uh piece of it that makes the game more inclusive of women and children. I think that's a big part of it, to be honest. But um I want to make sure those people are sticking around and not just
Mhm.
being pushed out by like these hyper competitive people who, are just going to give them a hard time. So I think that's part of it. I think the third part is just to like uh give myself a way to document my own journey with it and with the game, right? Like I came in as a somebody without any experience, and like I am competitive. I have this like drive to succeed at things. And um I don't know, I wanted to like keep track of that and give myself something to look back on afterwards, right? Um and I'm enjoying that aspect of it. I made this video. It was one of the ones that kind of got the most traction right off the bat. Uh, of like I failed. I didn't make any top eights during Ursula Returns, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that one. Yeah.
And talking about failure and what that's like, because it is demoralizing to like go and pay $30, 6 times over the course of a month to enter into these tournaments and then just get your ass handed to you over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Um, and that's super miserable. And like, why is that? And take a little time to like reflect on it. And so I think creating the channel gives me that space a little bit and gives me a forcing function for me to kind of like step back, look at myself, look at my play, look at my game, and um and actually reflect and think about what is the next steps of getting better. After I made that video, I really sat and I thought about it. I was like, I am self-sabotaging myself a lot. I like have this list that I practiced all month and like I come and then I just abandon it the night before because I get some wild idea.
Right.
Um and like that's not setting me up to win a tournament. Like that's
Right. Right.
I'm shooting myself in the foot. And so, the next weekend I was like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna go play RP. I'm gonna play a deck that I'm really familiar with, and I made two top eights in one day, like the weekend after I made that video.
There you go. Yep.
And so that's been a part of it for me too, is this like um this self-reflection tool in some ways.
No, I love that. That's such a cool idea, to be able to have it like, it's not just like let's have a video about this, let's have a video about this, like there's a lot of channels that do that kind of thing. And not discounting them, obviously, because that's their choice, it's their channel, however they want to do it. But I like the idea of it being kind of this progression kind of thing of, here's what I learned lately, or, here's um the next set that's coming up, here's what I think is interesting, or that the whole evolution of it is a really cool idea to kind of treat it that way. And it's crazy to, not that I've been at this for very long, but it's really interesting to like go back and look at some of the earlier videos and be like, I was in a completely different space at that time, different mentality about the game, different, focus on, on the community and everything. And it's really cool to see that, because sometimes you just kind of get lost in the evolution, right? Because it's
Sure.
those little steps along the way. But that's cool. I like that perspective on it. That's really interesting. Um, so I'm curious, for you at least, what is the easiest thing about doing content creation and the hardest thing about
I don't know if there's anything that's easy. Um,
it?
uh, like just honestly, I think it's hard for me. It's hard for me to come up with ideas. Um,
Mhm.
it's hard for me to like follow through on those ideas. Sometimes I'll get an idea and it'll be in my head, but it'll be fleeting and I didn't write it down. Um, I do lead a pretty busy lifestyle with work and then going to like 3 leagues a week. Um, and that's it's hard. It's hard to find time to do it and prioritize it. What I've found is the most successful for me is like when I have an idea, just like go to my computer, sit down and record it, right?
Mhm.
Like I want to hold myself to this like standard and do all this editing and like make it really nice and do all of the things that I see people do. But like I also know that those people probably pay editors too, or like this is their full-time job or whatever, right? So I need to, for me, what I've found that works and what makes it easy is if I have an idea, I'll just go sit in front of my computer, I'll open OBS and I'll make it, right? And if I make it, then I just immediately go post it and I like immediately do a thing on Canva, like a thumbnail, and I immediately
Mhm.
post it on YouTube. And so I don't know, that's helping me is like the treating it a little bit more spontaneous and a little bit more joyful of like, oh, I had this idea, let me go like record this video. I have, a half hour right now. But if I like sat down and I like jotted down the ideas that I wanted to talk about, and then I like made the thumbnail, and I would just never record the video. Like I would just never do it. And I would keep
Yeah.
wanting to, but I would put all these blockers in my way of just doing the thing. And I don't know, I watch a lot of videos from YouTube creators, not just in the Lorcana space, but elsewhere. And like one of the biggest piece of advices they give is like just do it, right? Like just
Yep.
do the thing, because if you just do it, like you'll actually do it.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
keep just wanting to do it, you're never going to actually do it. And so
Yep.
you have to try to remove those blockers. And so that's been one of the things for me is like what what is easiest is when I just sit down and I just do the thing.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I wish I could be like that. I have to be a little bit more on the planning side of things, as you
Sure.
noticed when we set this all up. But yeah, it's it's kind of it's interesting to see, all the different kind of creators and kind of their methodologies behind creating things. You have folks like Rebecca that do the short form content, but I know she actually plans things out and, actually sets up the shots and does all that kind of stuff. And then you have some people that they do lives, I mean, look at the Illuminators, that's live every
Hmm.
single time. Now they
Yeah.
do other videos too, but to have so many different kinds of people doing so many different kinds of content, and creating it in different ways, is really cool to me. It really shows kind of the diversity of, not just the content creator community, but also of, the Lorcana community at large. And there's new people coming around all the time, which is great,
Hmm.
to see new creators such as yourself, kind of getting in there and really, making their voices heard, and, sharing things like you said. Maybe not everybody is as comfortable, sitting down and just talking about this stuff, or talking about it with other people. To be able to have somebody whose voice you can identify with, is huge, for any community. But
Totally.
especially one that, we're trying to, everybody's trying to keep it, even Ravensburger is trying to keep this one as open and, welcoming as possible for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, cool. Well, so do you have any big plans for anything for the channel, or you have some video ideas that we can look forward to?
I've been wanting to try to get like a more regular podcast off the ground, like a
Mhm.
podcast format with one of my friends who's a judge. And uh so they're the judge of at VPC, like whenever they hold a bigger tournament. Um and I've kind of wanted to just like start a more general podcast with them, but I've had this idea for this series of videos, and calling them like, "Hey Judge," or like, something like that, where we talk through like a weird mechanical interaction. I see on the Facebook group all the time like people asking about these mechanical interactions, and a lot of times they're like the same one over and over again, or
Mhm.
you'll see somebody ask about it in one week, and then there's so many posts in that group, and somebody will ask the same question a little bit further down the road. And I know there are some other resources. There's Lore License and like the set notes that he did for this set. But having some videos like that where you could actually like showcase the interactions and have the
Mhm.
cards and like show what would happen, I think might help people understand some of those more complex interactions. Um, and so that's an idea I've had. But I don't know. I don't really have any super big plans beyond that. Um, I didn't make it into LCQ. I tried. We had like
Mm.
4 devices refreshing, but I
Yeah.
didn't get an LCQ ticket. Hopeful I'll get off the wait list. I, immediately waitlisted myself. But we'll see. I don't imagine too many people will drop. Um, Hopefully I can at least get an attendee ticket, and I'll try to share some about that experience and kind of the build up for that experience. Uh, we're going to be there that weekend anyway. So that'll be a
Oh,
little
cool.
awkward. Maybe I'll make
It's
some
like just
videos
kind of
of,
like hover around the
yeah,
conference center or something.
But maybe try to meet up with some people and maybe do some interviews that weekend. I love doing interviews as well. I love talking to
Mhm.
people. And so I think that would be super fun to maybe try to shoot some content that weekend. We're going to be staying in the Disneyland hotel. We already have our hotel book. It's my wife's
Oh, nice.
birthday, so we already were going to be there. So it's just convenient that they brought nationals to us, really. Um,
Yep. Yep. I mean, we had to figure it was going to be in one of those places, right? It's
yeah.
pretty obvious location, but yeah, no, that's awesome. That I mean, it's just, just down the road basically. So,
Yep. I
unfortunately,
mean,
those of us that live a little farther away, it's a little bit more of an expensive trip, but
yeah, totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Paris is this weekend. Um,
Sure.
so
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be cool to see, what those events turn out like. And, I mean, I'm imagining a DLC on steroids, but you never know. I mean, it could just be kind of the same kind of thing, but I highly doubt it. I could see
yeah,
them doing quite a bit more for it. Um, but yeah, no, it'll be interesting. So yeah, I love the idea of the podcast though. That's super cool. I know, with any game like this, there's going to be, things that aren't spelled out exactly in the rules, and I'm on tons of the Discords, and so I see, it seems like every single one has a rules channel, that's
yeah,
constantly being bombarded by by questions. So there is definitely no shortage of possible topics that you could have on that side. So.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, and showing the cards and showing the interaction is such a great idea. Because it's one thing talking about it, you could say, well, this trigger would happen, and but to actually see it and maybe even run through options for it, how if you resolve the bag this way, this is what happens. If you do it this way, it's something else. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
like
no, that'd be really cool.
illustrating and using the format of video to like illustrate the bag and show like, okay, these are the
Mhm.
triggers in the bag, and I think that would be helpful. I think a lot of people don't understand how the bag works.
Yeah.
um, and how those things can work and how you resolve triggers. I mean, Zan really showed it and showed how expert he is at it in Vegas, right? Like with
Mhm.
muse bouncing and sudden chill and like that kind of unique interaction around double singing sudden chill because you can discard a card, uh, bounce something by muses, and then trigger the Ursula second song to discard that card.
Mhm.
And that's just an interaction that like a lot of people would just be like, well, she double sings it and you discard your card and then I trigger the
Right.
muses and I bounce these things up to your hand. But really understanding that well, those are triggers in response to Ursula singing the song in the first place.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's so many little interactions like that are so cool that, it's always fun to be playing, especially somebody who's a little bit more experienced, that has maybe played the deck that you're playing before or has seen it played a lot. Um, and I don't know about your leagues, but in mine, people are more than happy to be like, oh, well, what if you did it this way? Or, do you want to try it a different way? And kind of offer advice a little bit because there's been times that you do that you resolve the triggers in an order that you think is appropriate, but you don't think about the different kind of flexibility and the options that kind of come with it. um I was trying, let's see, what was I doing? Oh, I had the new go-go. I was playing with that
Hmm.
this last week. And they had a Hiram out. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just, I'll hit him with one of mine and then, and then pay the two for go go and get the lore. And then they stopped me and they were like, do you want to hurt Hiram more before you do that? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, actually, And so to be able to, to think about that kind of stuff and the strategy and, and how things resolve is cool, especially when you have a good community around you to kind of help you think of those things. It's not all
Totally.
just you. So, but yeah. I was gonna ask, are you a part of like the Love to Lore community or any of the other marginalized communities?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Love to Lore server, and I'm actually on
Okay.
the Love to Lore competitive team that kind of got
Oh,
established
nice.
right before Vegas.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
so that's really fun. It's a great group of people. It's always nice to just have a group of people to bounce ideas off of, and I don't know, a lot of the teams that are out there really haven't started snatching up some of the better women competitors.
Hmm.
And so they've kind of been making their way to Love to Lore and joining the server and kind of getting involved and joining some of the conversations there. And that's been really great. It's really great to bounce ideas off with them. And like Clara joined pretty recently, and so getting a chance to talk with her about some of more aggressive strategies and how she kind of builds some of her decks, um, is really fun getting to kind of get that peek behind the curtain. Um, yeah, I think, being a part of Left to Lore has been really great. I'm not really a member of any other, real communities, obviously on a bunch of different Discord servers. Um,
Hmm.
I really enjoy the deck list chats in the 20 lore server. I learn a lot there and just kind of lurk and follow a lot of the conversations of people there. But um, yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of really smart people in this community, I have to say. Coming up with some of these decks, I never would have thought of putting some of this stuff together. Now, of course, you look at it after the fact and you're like, oh, well, yeah, of course, that makes sense. But when you have, what are we up to? Like, what is it, 1,200 cards now, something like that? To be able to like instantly say, oh, you know what? This card from the first chapter would be perfect right here. And it's like, yeah, I completely forgot that card existed. It's like,
Yep.
I mean, I'm glad that they're around. Don't get me wrong. It's great to be able to see those and to be able to kind of understand the logic behind them as well. Because deck building is definitely an art. There's no jokes about it, but just try to, as a new TCG player, try to sit down and create a deck and really think through it without having played a lot, and you'll realize just how hard it is to make something that, is actually like meta defining kind of deck.
Especially something that is at that level, right? Like I'm a bit
Mhm.
of a deck brewer. I love building decks. But most of my decks are like I don't know, what is Brennan has this phrase of like happy Christmas time Funland or something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
most of my decks fall into that category of like, if it works, it's really, really cool. But like
Right.
getting it to work, it doesn't always happen. Um, like I spent a lot of time last set playing Queen Disguise Peddler Mirabelle.
Mm,
Just because it's so
that
much
was a
fun
fun
when it
one.
works.
Yep.
Um, and it can just take people by so much surprise if they're not aware of what you're gonna do. You play the queen and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll 2-3, whatever." And then the next turn you discard Mirabelle for 5, and they're like, "Uh, how?" And I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
this card right
Yeah.
here, uh, it says if I turn it sideways and I discard a card, that I gain the lore on that card. So I discarded Mirabelle and I gained 5." Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. I love being that person of the like really obscure interactions that make people read the.
Yep. Yeah, that's actually a pretty fun one. I think I played that one like once at League, maybe. I kind of forget. It might have been online somewhere, but yeah, I read about that combo and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun, and then you start like trying to stack the deck with those high lore characters that you have no intent on playing,
Mhm.
obviously. But to have them in your hand and you get I remember one time I was playing and I actually got two of the queens out at once. And I think I had two, it was a Mirabelle and something else. But then of course, exerted both and discarded both of those and got like 9 or 10 lore off of one turn. It
Mhm.
was crazy. But like you said, when it fires, it's great. But getting it to that point can be a little tricky. But yeah.
My favorite burst interaction with Mirabelle is play a Pluto on turn 1.
Mhm.
You exert Pluto to make your next card you play one cheaper, so you play the queen on 2. On turn 3, if they have not cleared the Pluto, if they weren't able to play to board or clear the Pluto, you can exert Pluto again and play Sven and double discard with the queen.
Oh, okay. Yikes.
Um,
Yeah, that's really fun.
Yeah, so you're
I
at
hadn't
like
thought about
10
that.
lore immediately on turn 4.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just really
crazy.
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those ones that if it works, but yeah, that's fun. That's a really cool interaction. So I'm curious, you said you're a part of the Love the Lore community and and kind of growing in the wider community through, content creation and hanging out on Discords and everything. What's your overall like favorite part of the community?
Um, I think ultimately it's just like how approachable people are, and um people here are not um I don't know, they're not so self-righteous or self-absorbed. Um, people are just willing to engage in a conversation on Twitter or on, you know, Discord about whatever. Ultimately, we're all nerds just playing a Mickey Mouse card game.
Yep.
Um, and so I don't know, there's a bit of like levity in that that I think for me is one of my favorite parts.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, the Disney IP doesn't hurt, to be able to, I'm playing puppies, or or something. It's just kind of silly, you feel funny playing it, but that's half the fun of it, right? To be able to
Hmm.
to play with cards from your favorite movie, or you don't have to create a meta deck. You could just have a fun deck that, kind of plays whatever you want to play. You have fun
Totally.
interactions like the Queen Mirabelle stuff, or just straightforward, like, modified starter deck kind of thing. But yeah, no, it's cool. So I'm curious, are there any places where you think we could be better in the community?
Um, I mean, I there definitely are. There always is. I think while the community has been pretty supportive of women in the space, um, I think we still haven't seen a lot of competitive success from women, and
Mhm.
I would love to see a bit more, um, I don't know, support towards that effort. Like that's one of the reasons I got involved with Love to Lore is like I really would like to see more women making top 64s, um and us sharing our resources and sharing our knowledge is going to help that. I mean, obviously making top 64 in a 2000 person tournament is kind of a crapshoot. Um and yet there are people that are doing it very consistently that are at the top
Mhm.
of the community and at the top of their game, and um I have to believe that there are women that are capable of being there and that we just need to find them and help build their confidence and you know help them feel comfortable in those kinds of high pressure situations that they may not be comfortable in at this point. um I think that, and it's not that like I can point to any one person or one thing that is doing it wrong, but I think that's one of the things that I would love to see. I think, as we continue to grow, I think a juniors division or like a more
Mhm.
place where we can really feature kids and let them really shine would be awesome too. Um, uh, I think that would be, I'm sure it'll happen. Like it's just a matter of time, I think. But I would love to see that, especially since I go to league with a couple of young kids that are just really, really good, and I would love to to see them get a little bit more recognition and celebration. Um, let's see. Um, yeah, those are the first things that come to mind.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, you are definitely not the first person that has said something about a junior league. I mean, I think, with a game like this, it just kind of makes sense, right? With the age ranges that it brings, that the game itself brings, you've got a lot of more kids interested, you don't, it doesn't feel, now, granted, I dabbled in Magic way back, and so I wasn't really in the community for it. Um, but it definitely feels like, with Lorcana being kind of a safer place for kids, it feels like there's more of them that are into it and really, really, into it. not just like, oh, I'm going to play every once in a while, or I'm going to play at home and it's fun. I'm sure there's tons of those too. But to be able to have a program where, they're actually like recognized and it's formalized and, potentially like leads to other things, maybe there's a parallel thing with the normal DLC kind of process. And that's something that some other people have said as well, to have something that's kind of that point between a DLC and set championships,
Mhm.
so that it's not just you just immediately jump up from a set championships. Like, with other games, there is that progression. They have it on both
Sure.
sides, on a junior league and the regular league, to where, you kind of work up to it. I think being able to have that for the kids to build their confidence and, and actually, like you said, be recognized for their skill, so that they're getting those awards, and it's not just that they're competing with adults every single time. Now, some of them are way more skilled than a lot of the adults out there, but
Yeah.
but it would be cool, and I definitely I agree. I think it's only a matter of time, that it makes sense for this game. But
I'm wondering if we're gonna have to move in that direction anyway for the DLCs, just because there is clearly more interest than they are able to handle. And it's creating
Mhm.
a really bad experience for people who are not able to get tickets just because of an internet connection or, whatever, right? Like I was submitting payment, my Apple Pay wheel was spinning and it kicked me out from LCQ. And that's just a really bad experience. And so having
Mhm.
some more of those kind of interim tournaments might help um, fill that gap and then also provide ways to potentially qualify for DLCs and get pre-registered or something like that. That would kind
Yeah.
of alleviate that problem, I think, for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, and and some people are competitive to a point, right? There's going to be the diehards that they're the ones that go to the DLCs and really work and try, hit those top spots and everything, and like, they get completely down on themselves if they don't make it, and but I could see that there's people that are like, oh, okay, cool, this time I did really well at set champs. Next time I did really well at the next level up, whatever that happens to be, and then, potentially progressing on, or they just say, cool, I got to this middle point. I'm good. I don't want to take this, I don't want the stress of a DLC and all that kind of stuff,
Sure,
but to have that option, to be able to do that it would be really cool. So,
totally.
but- well, is there anything else you can see in the future of the game that you think would help, whether it's like actual mechanics in the game, or, we kind of already talked about the community a little bit, and the, the leagues and everything, but what about the game itself? Do you think there's any room for improvement there?
Um, I mean, I love what they've done so far. I think, from maybe a high level design criticism standpoint, I think one of the things that is maybe frustrating to me and a number of other folks, I'm sure, is that it seems like we get a good number of just unplayable legendaries every set that are just like
Mhm.
um they're rare cards, but they're like their abilities are just not competitive or they just need too much support to be competitive. And I think that's a little um, frustrating. I would love for legendaries to be a bit more playable so that we have more than like one playable legendary a set,
Right,
which
right.
is what it's kind of felt like. By the same token, I really love the fact that uncommons seem to define a lot of the meta in this game.
Mhm.
And rares and uncommons tend to drive a lot of the meta. And I think that's really healthy because those games are more accessible, they're cheaper, like those cards. So, you don't want to balance it too far the other way. Um, I guess I'm maybe someone of the camp of like I would love more alternate arts in the game. Um, and just more kind of variation. I'm kind of in the camp where I love that they extended the promo card to top eight for set champs, but I would love
Mhm.
if 5 through 8 was a non-foil and 1 through 4 was a foil.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
the little stuff like that, right? To keep that progression in place where you keep getting a little bit of a better prize. but still be able to give more people the cool alternate arts. Um, I don't know, I already mentioned I love alternate arts. I can't wait for Baymax, like the alt art Baymax from Continentals. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but I don't know. I think that's one of the big things for me. I also just want more of it. Like we have, yes, 4 sets a year, but like I want it more integrated everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, you know, if you go to the parks, there's like a whole collection of people that pin trade. Like I want to carve out an area at Disneyland of like this is where we play Lorcana, and like I could
Yep.
just go into the parks and just like meet up and meet random people and play Lorcana with them, right? Like that's where I want to get to with this game. I want it to be that ubiquitous and like um that there are that many people that play. And that's going to take more growth, right? It's going to take a while to get there. Magic has been around for 30 years. Like it's
Yeah.
going to take Lorcana a little bit of time, but th those are some of the futures that I like to think about is like I really would love um if I could just go to Disney and meet random people and play in the park.
That would be super cool. Just find a little spot and constantly be full of Lorcana players. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I could see it, I mean, it's Disney. They could make it possible, right?
totally.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, I mean, we're only like a year and a couple of months in. So,
It's
it's a
wild.
baby compared to a lot of the TCGs that are out there. But
Pretty much every set we've gotten a new mechanic, so like the game continues to
mhm,
grow and get more complex and I love the new interactions, like the kind of inking matters stuff of this set is really fun. Thinking of ways you can break cards by playing them with Sapphire and inking multiple times a turn is really fun. Um, I don't know. I'm just excited for that. I'm excited for the meta continuing to widen. Like we've gotten to a point now where like there are multiple ways to build ink colors in a
mhm,
competitive way, right? Like you can play RP traditional kind of bounce control, you can play RP burn. Um, Purple Steel is kind of on the rise this set, and you can play it aggressive, you can play it more mid-range. I love that. I love that aspect where we're kind of starting to see diversity. There's like three different ways to build Amber Steel now. There's like Amber Steel locations, Amber Steel aggro with a little bit of interaction that Candio has been playing. There's also just the more
mhm.
traditional Amber Steel. Um, so that's really fun to me. I'm really excited for the future where the metagame is that diverse.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, honestly, as we get more cards, I can see that being, definitely something that's easier. But, it seems like there's always going to be, a couple of top tier decks, and then some ones that are a little bit lower tier, and then you've always got like I forget if it was the Atlanta or the Chicago that somebody just played like a bizarre deck, and they they ended up like in the top four or top three or something like that.
Well, it was
So
Atlanta. Atlanta was won by
was it?
Josh Paltray playing yellow
That's right.
purple
That's right. It
uh
was.
bounce with Cinderella and Fairy Godmother and Mufasa. Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a
that's the
wild
one.
deck.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. But I mean, you're always going to have outliers like that, but to be able to have, I think somebody said it the other day on Twitter that there was like at least seven or eight possible decks that are considered basically top tier right now in, as far as Azurite see the release of that. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues or if whatever the next set releases, if that changes things up so that it narrows, it's interesting to see. But I don't know. I mean, that's why they have people smarter than me working on this game and and trying to figure out how to make these sets work and these cards, cooperate without being too overpowered. And we don't want too many Buckies in the future. So
No, no,
yeah.
we do not.
Oh, well, cool. Well, hey, I've really enjoyed getting to sit down and talk with you. Thank you for taking the time. I know I'm sure you've got a busy schedule. So, and you said you've got league tonight, so good luck. I, wish you all the best. What are you playing?
Right now I've been playing a Sapphire Steel low to the ground kind of aggro deck. Um, which is it's not really a deck that's been played or seen much play. Uh, it started to make a little bit of waves coming out of an event I organized here actually in the Bay Area called the Battle of the Bay.
Hmm.
My wife, and our friend Ben put that on. We had about 140 people playing, and
Nice.
one of the top 16 lists was a blue steel list that has locations and played like John Silver as well as Alice, the new Alice Savvy Sailor.
Hmm.
So I've been working with him, with Jonathan Lee, and we've kind of been working on this kind of more aggressive blue steel strategy, using, resist and ward to just kind of be really annoying.
Yeah,
And so it
yeah,
plays like the one drop Mickey, Mr. Arrow, Calhoun, um, and it's just a lot lower the ground. Pluto on 4, and then you can play Baymax on 5 and heal up Pluto, keep Pluto healed up, gain lore from that, and um, it's uh, it's feeling pretty good. Sometimes they don't have enough removal, so trying to deal with uninkables and figure out the right ratios and stuff, but um, it's pretty fun. It's a fun way to play this set, I think.
nice, nice. Yeah, I think I saw a version of that somebody had come up with, but it sounds like this is pretty different. So yeah, I'll be interested. I'll have to hit you up after and get that deck list. That sounds pretty cool. So
Sure.
cool, cool. All right. Well, I like to end these with the same three questions for everybody. So right now, favorite ink and card.
Um, I think I come back to purple as my favorite ink. I love to draw cards, and purple is very good at drawing cards.
Hmm.
So I've played a lot of RP. I've played a lot of Emerald, Amethyst, and um, I love Amethyst. I think the most. I think the ability to just draw cards and never be empty-handed. Um, I'm playing a card game to play cards, and so I never want
Right,
to be top
right.
decking. I always like having a lot of cards in hand.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
my favorite card. Um, hmm,
And it could be mechanics wise or art wise, if that helps, or both.
I don't know. It's so hard. I feel like I have recency bias. Um, like a card that I've really been enjoying recently is Baymax. I think that card is
Hmm.
like super slept on. It's basically Rapunzel, but for lore, and it happens when Baymax quests too. Like that seems insane.
Yeah.
And I've really been enjoying that card, so I'm really looking forward to the alt art coming out of Nationals. Yeah, I'm gonna say Baymax Armored Protector.
Okay. Nice. Nice. I'm right there with you, a big Baymax fan. So although the what's the healthcare companion? Hmm, it's an okay card. I
Yeah,
kind of I kind of wish it was a little bit different, but yeah, that's all right.
yeah,
It got a cool enchanted, so yeah.
this is true.
All right. So favorite Disney movie and why?
I think if we're talking traditional Disney movies, it's got to be Robin Hood. Um,
Okay.
I've always just been the biggest fan of Robin Hood. Why? I don't know. It's a little hard to put my finger on. I think um, I think there's a few reasons. One, it's a very like anti-capitalist, like pro people film, right? It's like the
Hmm.
villain is Prince John, and he is this miser and getting people's money and storing it and hoarding it and making people pay taxes. And um I don't know. I've always just appreciated that bit of propaganda when I was younger.
Yeah.
I guess st steal from the rich, give to the poor. I think
Right. Yep.
I don't know. That's okay with me.
Yep. It's not a bad thing. So yeah.
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Any recent favorite Disney movies?
Um, hmm. I think the most recent one I've seen that I hadn't seen before was the new Inside Out, um,
Mm-hmm.
which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed, I don't know, pretty much everything about it. Um, I think, Pixar is so good at telling stories and so good at like finding the emotional heart of a story. And I think
Hmm.
um, Inside Out 2 is just another example of that. Like I think they really smashed it out of the water, or out of the park again. Um, I've always been a big Pixar fan, so um, I think probably Inside Out 2 is my most recent one.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. I was pleasantly surprised seeing that one, after seeing the first one, I was like, well, I don't know how the sequel is gonna go, but they did good with it. I was pretty impressed. But
Yeah.
well, cool. All right, last question. Where can people find you and your content?
So I've been trying to centralize on Teagan Ross. So I changed my YouTube channel just to be my name. Um, and so you can find my stuff there. I'm also on Blue Sky as Teagan Ross. And then uh I'm on Twitter as Take Refuge Games. Currently. So I think Twitter is kind
Cool.
of on the way out, but I know there's still a lot of people there.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I don't know. I don't know what the future of that platform is, but yeah. I'm happy that Blue Sky is a thing and that there's quite a bit of the Lorcana community over there. So if you're listening and you haven't checked out Blue Sky, there's lots of Lorcana folks over there and there's some good starter packs. So
Yeah,
if you do get on there, hit up either myself or Tegan and we can kind of point you in the right direction and get you started on the right path. So
totally.
all right, well, cool. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. It's great talking to you, and see you around the community.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe and rate or like us on your platform of choice. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can email us at lorcanachats@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter or X at LorcanaChats, the podcast at podcast.lorcanachats.com, or just lorcanachats.com. We love feedback on the show, and let us know if there's anyone you'd like to hear from in the Lorcana community. See you next time.